And welcome back to another episode of Boots on the Ground, where we discuss Israel's politics, wars, and identity. In this episode, I have the great honor to host Colonel Hezi Nehama.
Good evening.
We're going to discuss about his vision for Gaza, how we can achieve it, and what we're doing wrong to get there. Before we get into that discussion, I want to share with our audience who Hezi is and how I first met him. Hezi started out his army service many moons ago in the famed Sayeret Matkal, the reconnaissance force for the chief of staff, and then continued on to the large army, the bigger army. He held multitudes of command positions between then and now. His last posting was as the brigade commander for the Alexandroni Brigade, one of Israel's leading infantry brigades in the reserves, and has been a extraordinarily important part of this war. Since finishing his army service, Hezi has gone on to hold other positions as advisors for battalion commanders along the way. And this is where I first met Hezi. Many years ago, before this war started, Hezi came as an advisor, a trainer,
and a friend
to my battalion commander. And we trained together, and I had met him and respected him and enjoyed his presence. And on October 7th, when the whole country blew up and everything went crazy, I get to my base, and who do I see there? Hezi, as a colonel coming in to serve right alongside us. And he spent the first 2 months, I think it was, 3 months of the war?
Month and a half.
The first month and a half in Gaza, in Beit Hanun. And I can say one of the most amazing things about Hezi, besides his brilliance of understanding his battlefield, the fact that I've never seen him not calm, didn't matter what was going on around us, was that he had the simple level of putting his head down and doing what needed to be done. His pack was just as heavy as the rest of ours. When someone had to do guard duty at the entrance to the building we were in, Hezi would volunteer to sit alongside us. Didn't matter his rank. When someone had to clean up or make some food for everyone to eat, Hezi was always part of everything. He was humble, but serious, and helped bring his spirit and his understanding to all of us.
Ari, you can stop here. I feel like I'm attending my funeral.
Absolutely not your funeral. Absolutely. This is the exact opposite of your funeral.
I know.
It's important for our listeners to understand who's speaking. It's not just another colonel, not just another soldier, another officer, but for them to understand why it was important for me to bring you on our show. Because it's not just the message you have, the messenger is very important. You're not just another high-ranking officer with his nose in the air that knows everything. I've seen you admit that you don't know, or you're not. I've heard you say, I don't know, in Hebrew. And I've seen the level of humility that you have, which is extraordinarily important to understand that your message is not just the right message, but it's also the messenger. But before we get into our discussion about Gaza, I want to once again say thank you to our partners at the Jerusalem Media Group and to our sponsors at BeThereIsrael.com. BeThereIsrael.com provides streaming video production for events here in Israel. So even if you can't be here in person, you can still be part of the event. And always, if you like our content, click the like button, share our content, and leave a comment so we know what you want to hear more about. And now, let's get back to it with Hezi. Hezi, it's a pleasure to have you here.
I'm happy you invited me.
All right. So now that we know who you are, and now that we know a little bit about you, let's start off with a really big question. Not how we get there, but what is your vision for Gaza? Let's talk 2 years, 3 years, 10 years into the future. The war is over. What does Gaza look like?
I think it's very hard to speak about the day after in Gaza, because we are in the current day that it's going it will take time to solve the problem. And as you know, we in our forum of the reserve in the commander in reserve, it was a year and a half after the fighting in Beit Hanun, and I continued in El Atatra in the north of Gaza. After 3 months or 2.5 months, I understood in this way of fighting, we won't solve the problem. We won't defeat Hamas. And I know it's one of the main goals of this war, or maybe the main goal of the war, to defeat Hamas. And we asked a meeting with the chief of staff, with Herzi Halevi. I have a lot of respect to Herzi. He's amazing commander. I served under his command in Sayeret Matkal, 25 years ago. And we asked for a meeting. We came, maybe 20 battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and we spoke with him. And we told him, Herzi, you have to understand this method of raids again and again to the same neighbors, the same neighborhoods, in the same area again and again. We won't solve the problem. Hamas is going to stay there. And we are speaking today. It's August. Only today. I don't know when you publish this interview, but only today we experienced an attack of more than 15 terrorists in Khan Younis. They tried to kidnap a soldier. It's crazy that we are still in this situation after 22 months of fighting. So we told him, and he listened, but in the end we understood he is not going to change. And we founded this forum of commanders, and we had a lot of activities in the Knesset, in the public area, many fields, that our goal is to trying to change the IDF method of fighting. We believe in the idea that you can defeat terror, because what happened in Israel in the past 30 years, since the 90s, till the 90s, if you check, our theory of fighting, our concept, it's to defeat and to decision,
Black and white.
Yes, when
Not
Ben
shades of gray.
Gurion established and he wrote the principles, so he spoke about, first of all, deterrence, okay, and alert. But in the end, you have to defeat your enemy. It's decisive. It's something that you can't leave them, and it should be very fast. And here we see just the opposite. And if you check in the history, so you can see the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War and the first Lebanon War, we achieved our goal, very clear. But since the 90s, something happened. Something changed in the Israeli society. I believe that we brought it. We imported it from the US. Now you can see it in the universities, but I call it the progress. The ideas that came from the very far left liberal progress movement. That the main idea is about there is no bad and good. There is no bad guy. It's only someone that he is a bad environment or something like this. And I'm sorry for my poor English, but
your English is excellent.
I hope the listeners can understand. And we imported these ideas here to Israel, and it influenced mainly the judicial system, the universities and the academy, and the military. And of course, the media in Israel, the tikshoret, the journalists, in the 90s, it was only one channel,
and now it's
channel
3.
2. Now it's more. But they imported these ideas, and they tried to convince us that we cannot defeat terror, that we don't have to keep our identity, that to believe in nationalism, it's old-fashioned. It's not relevant anymore. What?
Well, it would be bad because it separates people and builds individual identities.
Exactly. And since then, the IDF, first, you can say the first example is, of course, Lebanon. Why the IDF was in Lebanon during the 90s? Because during the 70s, we had Ashraf in Lebanon. And they infiltrated Israel. They made a lot of terror attack, if you remember, in Misgavam and Nahariya and Ma'alot.
I was 6 years old and living in New York.
I know you read.
So I do read.
You read. But so, and in the end, we understood we don't have any other option besides the soldiers in outspots to watch the citizens of Israel. This is people that we are for them. And, but we had an organization named Arba Imaot, for mothers. Yes, and they are, the soldiers got killed in Lebanon. Every year, maybe 20 soldiers get killed. So we have to leave Lebanon. We have to disengage, with no conditions, with no to sign any accord with Hezbollah or.
And then Ehud Barak comes in and just pulls everyone out of Lebanon in one night.
He promised, if I be a prime minister, we will leave Lebanon. And that's what happened. But the other day, maybe 3-4 months after, the first kidnapped in the Hardov, you just mentioned the Hardov. And 6 years later, we met Hezbollah in the Second Lebanon War. And since then, Hezbollah became a monster, something that...
A massive army on our northern border.
Exactly. And the second example is, of course, the disengagement from Gaza. And I remember in defensive shield, Chomat Magen, after the second Intifada, it was very hard year, the 2000 and 2001. More than 800 Israelis got killed in 1 year. It's crazy. It's more than 15.
I remember that.
Every week, more than 15.
That was the year I made Aliyah.
Wow,
and lived in
amazing.
and lived in the center of Jerusalem.
Wow.
And I stopped taking buses and I would walk. And where I had to go and around, I said, I'd rather walk than run the risk of being on a bus and it blowing up.
Yes, but think about this year. I was a company commander in Maglan this year. And we knew what's going on. We knew that all the terrorists, they came from the refugee camps with their bomb suits and we know what we need to do, to go to the refugee camp, to conquer them, and to destroy all the laboratories, but it took more than a year and a half for the prime minister to take the decision. And since, and you remember the Malone Park, the Park Hotel in Leila Seder, this was,
that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. And then, wow, amazing defensive shield operation, 6 weeks, and we...
Right, but everyone forgets that after those 6 weeks, the army continued.
Of course.
To my army service 3 years later, when I started in Shechem, everything we did was that we kept doing defensive shield for years to follow. But we're digressing. We're digressing from Gaza. The reason I asked you about why, I want to know what your vision is for Gaza, because it's very hard for military people like you and I. We can talk about this piece without really knowing necessarily what's going on all the way down the road. Most people say, give me a goal, and then how do I achieve it? Right? So for most people, they want to know, okay, what are we working to achieve in Gaza? What does victory mean? So, one of the things you've done at this war is you founded the forum. You've mentioned it now, but you founded the forum of officers and commanders and reserves, which is I want to call it a lobbying group, but it's way more than that, where you're bringing together the field commanders.
Absolutely.
Like this is what Sean and I talk about in our show regularly, is that there's a disconnect between the senior military leadership and the leadership on the ground. And here we're all chomping at the bit. We're trying to win, and it's always this disconnect where they're sitting up here and they're not connected to the reality that we're in, and they're not even having to get held back. They're holding themselves back, and they're not even letting us do our job properly. So before we get into all of that, I want to say what you're presenting is it doesn't matter what the long-term goal is for Gaza. First, we have to achieve victory.
Exactly.
But what does victory in Gaza mean? Does victory in Gaza, does victory in Gaza mean that I can drive around and go shopping in Rafiach with my kids? Or is victory, the army controls everything? And define what victory is before we talk about how we could achieve it.
Okay, so first of all, we don't need any more shelters in the envelope in Sderot, because no one threatens you. It's something that, we can achieve. I live in Eli, in the middle of Samaria. But I feel comfortable to come here with my car. I don't have shelter. I don't have, Qassams, and I'm not afraid of anti-tank missiles. It's something that we don't know about it. We have Hamas. We have Hamas in Judea and Samaria. But in the end, if it's one terrorist with a kalach, I don't like it, but it's something that I can live with. Okay? Here in Gaza, you have an organization, you still have an organization that can do a raid in the scale of platoon or company. It's crazy. First of all, we have to defeat Hamas. We can speak about how to do it.
We're going to get into that next.
Yes. But first of all, to defeat Hamas, I want to see Hamas. I want to see his heads. I want to see just bring them. It's a word in Hebrew, hachra'ah, decision. It's something.
Decisive victory.
Exactly. Hachra'ah in Hebrew, it's from the word lichroa. you know, to
to bend over, to subdue.
yes,
To subdue would be the word in
yes,
English.
because I'm going to win this war, and you have, and we did it in the past when the PLO, the Ashraf, when they infiltrated from Lebanon, we launched the first Lebanon war, and in the end of the war, all the terrorists went to ships and they
They were sent away to Libya,
to Tunisia.
to Tunisia. Sorry,
Yes.
Tunisia. They
So
surrendered.
yes,
So
and
that's
what should be here, the same. And
so.
here it's much more simple.
So victory would be. We're going to get into that, friends. So victory is that the Israeli civilians living in the Gaza envelope, what I call the Western Negev, because that's what it is, the western part of the southern part of Israel.
They call themselves Otef Israel. They are the envelope of Israel, not of Gaza.
Right, not of Gaza. Exactly.
They
Whereas
defend Israel.
Language, it goes back to the progressivism. Language is important.
Yes,
Language
you're
is
right.
very important. The way you use words is very important. So you're saying that the people that are living there, they don't need to have bomb shelters next to them at every moment. They don't have to live under a threat where there is. It's not just that we have a defensive wall that's big and strong, but there is no longer a threat. There's no longer a organization, a body, an army that threatens them on the other side of that
A
fence.
significant a threat. Like, I don't want them to have anti-tank missiles. I don't want to have any.
The reality is, sounds
In
always
the end of the day, one terrorist with a kalach or 100 terrorists with kalach, it's something
it's
that,
manageable.
yes,
We can deal with it.
exactly,
The same way we
exactly.
deal with it in Judea and Samaria, we can deal with it in Gaza. Because in the end of the day, there's always going to be someone that wants to kill us. We're never going to destroy the
And
ideology.
it's the same about criminality. Like, for example, in your neighborhood, I'm sure you don't want any thieves. I'm sure you don't want anyone to disturb, right?
Oh, but we have plenty of it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So, but it's something that's manageable, something that you can handle
Correct.
it. It's the same about terror. You have a level that you can.
It's manageable.
Yes.
And as long as we can get it there. So that's what now. I want to stay away from the political questions, really, of why it hasn't been done till now. We'll touch on it a little bit later. But my question is right now, given the current reality that we're in, right? The chief of staff and the prime minister has just announced that we're doing Gideon's Chariots round 2.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that's what you were thinking, and I agree with you completely. You know, it's Albert Einstein that says a person who tries the same thing again and again expects a different result
Yes.
is a sign of insanity. So again, Gideon's Chariot rounds 2 was just announced. They started calling up more reserve duty in theory. But the question is now is, let's say you were the chief of staff. Let's say you were the defense minister, the prime minister, the chief of staff, and you were the southern commander. You're all of those jobs, so no one can disagree with you. What would your plan be? What would you do in order to achieve that victory?
So a year and 2 months ago, we launched the general's plan. We built with
Giora Island.
yeah, exactly, with Giora Island, a general in the IDF, and the idea is very, very, very simple. You can take the strip. The Gaza Strip. It's not so big. It's only 350 square kilometers. It's 40 kilometers or 9, 10. It's something very, very small. First of all, you have to divide it. Okay, we know the Netzarim corridor, we know the Morag corridor. It doesn't matter where. You can do it in Netzarim, you can do it in Morag. And then you have to let the population, to the civilians, to know that from next week, we don't supply water and food to the Gaza city. For example, we can do it in any other area, but for example, in the Gaza city. But we give them everything. A lot of food, a lot of water, a lot of cigarettes, medicine, everything, what they need, thousands to the Netzarim corridor. Okay. And then they have 1 week to organize themselves and to come. It's very easy. It's not so complicated. But when they come, you have to check them. They have to come to checkpoints, and you have to check if it's woman, child. They can continue. But if they are, in the relevant age, so we have to check. He gives his name. If he's Hamasnik, we take them. If we arrest him. If Shabak say he's approved, you can. And then after 1 week, you close the pipe of the water. Till now, We supply Gaza. We supply Hamas. I'm not talking about the trucks of the aid. I'm not talking about the airdrop. I'm talking about water. You know, Hamas today have enough supply for 2 years ahead. They won't be hungry, but they don't have how to keep
store water.
to store water. Exactly. They don't have, because they don't have pools, they don't have towers of water, nothing. So they have to
You have to drink every few days.
exactly. And if you have 15,000 terrorists, Hamas, in the Gaza city, so it's not easy to supply. So once they have the pipe from Israel, it's very easy. But once you close it, it's a matter of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, that thousands of terrorists will come to the border, will come to our forces, and
They'll surrender.
yes, and this the beginning of the defeat of Hamas. This is the beginning of the end, because that's how it looked like when thousands, when it's the collapse. It would bring the collapse of the organization. Meanwhile, you killed Def and Sinwar, and you kill all the heads of the organization. But in the end of the day, most of the terrorists, they know what they want and they continue. But if you don't have what to drink, it's the end of the story. It's something that it's a matter of weeks. So they surrender themselves. And then think about it, Gaza City and all the area around, it's more than 1/3 of the Gaza Strip. So it's a main achievement. If you clear all the Gaza City and you don't risk your soldiers, this is the most important thing. The idea of laying siege, it's the most humanitarian
Way of fighting a war.
yes, because you care about the civilians of the enemy, and you care about your soldiers. Maybe I should say it the opposite. You care about your soldiers, you care about their citizens, and in the end, the siege, it's against the Hamas, and it's according to the international law. And we just met the Prime Minister last week, and we handed him with a paper that Professor Avi Bell and Professor Eugene Kantarovich, they're very famous professors,
Yes.
And they say it's something that we can do according to international law, according to the American manual, the Army manual, according to the British manual. That's what we should do. This is the way how to fight in terror. And when you check and you ask yourself why we don't do it, I'm not talking about the political question, but within the army, 2 reasons. One, it's Rabbanim, right? The ultra-Orthodox. There are some rabbis that always like to leachmir.
They like to be more stringent. To always find another stringency on top of another stringency.
Exactly. It's the same for the international law. So our military advisors, all the
legal advisors,
Patsari, legal advisors, they like to be more
stringent than the person before them.
Exactly. So no, it's not allowed. You have to give them the humanitarian aid to the neighbor that they stayed within the Gaza city. No chance. Hamas control there. You can't give them the food. I give them the opportunity to live. I give them a very safe corridor to live. I can do a ceasefire for 1 week to let them to live. But if in the end of the day they stay there, it's their problem. It's not my problem. Right. This is one reason that we put limitations on, and the most difficult thing that we put this limitation, but it's like we don't care about our soldiers, because of the end of the day you say, okay, I will send soldiers. This is the idea of the next operation of the Gideon Chariot 3 or 4, to send our forces to Gaza City to evacuate the population. So, but you know the field, you know the area. You know that if you're going to send battalions and brigades to the cities or to the streets of Gaza,
it's not going to end well.
Yes, but we're going to do it. Unfortunately, it's crazy. I'm trying to do everything I can to prevent it. And this is the reason why I met Prime Minister last week, and we do whatever we can. But it's something that I can't explain. The other reason why we don't do this general's plan, it's because of the hostages. we don't want to put risks on the hostage. We don't want to put them in risk. And it's something that I can understand why the families want it, and I can understand many things around it. But in the end of the day, in war, everybody take risks. You took your risk. I don't know how many days, more than 300 days, I can guess.
Close to 400.
400. Amazing. And I salute you and others like you. But you take risks, and you have a family, you have wife, you have kids. I have 3 kids in the army. They take risks. My son was in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon, everywhere, and today in Jenin, everywhere. He's a married, he has a wife. But we took risks, and we all take risks. In the war with Iran, more than 29 citizens were killed because, we have a very clear goal, and we did whatever we need. And unfortunately, 29 people got killed.
Right.
And more than almost 900 soldiers got killed in this war. And I'm not talking about more than 15,000 that got injured. So everybody pay prices in this war. And we can't say that we are going to fight without, and we won't put their lives in danger. I don't want to risk them, intentionally.
Their lives are already in danger.
Huh?
But they're already in danger.
Exactly. But in war, it's something that can happen, and we have to blame Hamas and not say, okay, so we are not going to fight in the refugee camps, if you know, Dir Nusrat, El Burej, El Marazi, all the centers.
Refugee camps in the central of the Gaza Strip.
We didn't fight till now. It's more than 22 months. We didn't fight a huge area in the center of the Gaza Strip. Why? Because we know
that's where the hostages are.
Exactly. So it's impossible. You can't win if you're not going to conquer, and you're not going to.
And you can't bring the hostages home without winning.
Exactly.
It's a catch-22.
Exactly. And people don't understand, but this is exactly Hamas strategy. If we had the opportunity to meet Sinwar in October 7th, 6 in the morning, and we were asking, how many hostages you want? How many people you want to kidnap from Israel? If he can, imagine what number. You would say 10, 15, 20. It's something that, till then, for 35 years, he's trying to kidnap. He didn't succeed.
Got nobody.
Yes, no.
You got Gilad Shalit.
Yeah, huh?
You got Gilad Shalit, Avraham Mengistu.
Yes, with Sportas, with some, and Waxman, but only few. And in the end of the day, when he heard that he has more than 250
hostages,
yes, so he said to himself, okay, I have to change my strategy. I don't want to speak now about the end conditions and what's going to be in the end and the day after. He put 3 main goals to his negotiations and all the deals. First of all, he wants to free his terrorists in the Israeli jail, right? Second of all, he wants to make our lives in Israel, I'm talking about the society. He knew that we have the Kaplan demonstrations. For
the judicial reform before the war.
Exactly. And he wanted to make it even bigger. He wanted
to rip Israeli society apart from inside.
Exactly. And the third was that he wants to stay in power in Gaza. And along the past almost 2 years, he achieved all his goals. Everything. And only now, when he has only 20 hostages alive, 20 live hostages, he changed the conditions for the negotiation. He say, okay, now I want other things. I want to stay in power the day after. I want the IDF to leave.
To pull out from the entire Gaza.
Even from the perimeter. I want that Russia and China will guarantee that Israel not going to attack me the day after. And many things that now we have to decide. And unfortunately, all these partial deals again and again, it's to play to their hands, because that's exactly what they want. They want to stay in this condition, this situation for years ahead. From their point of view, they will sign to stay in this situation for the next 5 years. And this is the reason that I believe that we have to, it's something you have to solve it now. Don't. If I were tell you that a year ago that you're going to we're going to speak together and you're going to do so many
Uh,
miluim, it's
I would have
imaginable.
laughed at you. I would have lost a little respect for you then if you had told me that a year and a half after we had our cup of coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning in Beit Hanun, we were discussing the education of our children. Now, our listeners don't know this, but Hezi has 8 children.
Baruch Hashem.
8 children, 2 sons and a son-in-law who serve who are in the army, and he still does enormous amounts of time in uniform. But we were talking about it. If you had told me then that a year and a half later I'd be back in reserve duty, not one more time, but 3 more times, I would have said you're nuts. And unfortunately, you didn't. Thank God you didn't say that. I maintained respect for you, and unfortunately, we're back still in that reality. I think that you're touching on. There's something I actually just finished reading a book that Victor Davis Hanson wrote, the military strategist, historian, brilliant man, and he wrote about the Battle of Okinawa in the Second World War in the Pacific, where the Japanese took a strategy of fighting no matter what, fighting to the bitter death, with suicide raids and and their whole idea was
Harakiri.
right. Well, no, it was more like kamikaze. But it was going to and banzai raids, whereas the infantry version of kamikaze, when their idea was they were going to make the victory for the Americans so bloody and so miserable in Okinawa that they could never dream of invading the mainland. And what they didn't calculate was that they made the battle on Okinawa so bloody and so miserable that that was what forced the Americans to decide to use the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which brought such massive destruction immediately that forced the total surrender of Japan. Now, I think that we're at a moment, we're at our Okinawa moment now. Hamas has made our lives for 20 years so miserable, so bloody and so unbearable. And now they forced the emotional side of having captives. I don't like calling them hostages because hostages is a term from criminology, where captives is a term from war. This was an act of war.
Yes.
And that now Israeli society has to decide, are we now going to go on for a long-running deal and battle and just bloodlet slowly over time? Or is this going to be our Hiroshima moment, where our leadership is going to have to make that decision to do it? Now, we're not dropping an atomic bomb. I don't want any of our listeners to think I'm not saying we should be using nuclear power. We don't have nuclear weapons officially. But is this going to be that moment in time where Israel, its leadership, has to make that courageous decision that, okay, we have to do something extreme here. We have to now decide that, no, we're not going to play this game of cat and mouse and bloodletting anymore, but we're going to make the decision that you're presenting to just do it once and for all and rip the Band-Aid off and do it once and for all.
Yes.
And I hope that our leadership makes that decision. And I hope
Question: if you get the decision, if you take decision from your head and from your logic or from the emotional
heart.
aspect, yes, and I can understand the captives, the families. I can understand them why they speak like this. But in the end of the day, when prime minister, when chief of staff, they have to take the decision. I want to believe that
they're using their head and they're taking into account what the nation needs and what the entire people
years
need.
ahead. Because when we check about Gilad Shalit, for example, so all the disaster of the October 7th, it
started from the Gilad Shalit.
Yes, because we wanted our kid to come back. Also as you said, the language.
The language, as I said.
He's not a kid. He was a soldier. He was a soldier that in duty. And if he
and it happens,
yes. Unfortunately, I don't like it, and we have to do everything to bring him back, but not
capitulate and surrender to our enemies.
Exactly.
And mortgage our future. On that note, I want to say thank you, Hezi, for coming on the show and for sharing this vision. And we have a custom here is that we leave our audience with some optimistic thought. We share something that is really powerful that we want to leave everyone with, because in the end of the day, we're talking about war and we're talking about battles where soldiers will die and will be injured in the future. And that's a fairly scary and depressing thought to think about. But if you could share one optimistic thought with all of our listeners, with the nation of Israel, with all of our supporters around the world, what would it be?
Okay, so first of all, we have to know that October 7th was a disaster, but it also was a miracle, a huge miracle. The fact that Hezbollah didn't act in the same day. So our strategic situation today, it's much better than it was in October 6th, first of all. And more than this, I want to say that I want to look at the half glass,
The half full. The half full side of the
half
glass.
full side of the glass. And to speak about the Israel society, about the reserves, about their families, about the people from abroad that contribute money or come to strengths and go to visit in the Otef and everywhere. And it's amazing what's happened here since October 7th. And I want, and I believe that we have to be united around positive ideas, not only because of war, because someone wants to destroy us. Then we know how to be together, right? But the idea is to be together for a positive goal. And when I think what is our positive goal, so in the first Zionist Congress, they spoke about safe shelter for the Jewish people. And I can understand their point because it was after 2,000 years of exile and
Exile
massacres
destruction.
and everything. Or it was before the Holocaust, but it's the same idea. Every generation had his power and his. So they dreamed about a safe shelter, but I believe that we achieved this goal of safe shelter, and we have to think about something positive, not only a safe shelter.
But where are we going from
What
here?
is our destiny? The Jewish people come back here to Israel after 2,000 years. What we have to tell to the world, what we want to achieve. And the main idea, Abraham were told by God that you have to bring blessing to the world. Veheye bracha. You have to bless the world. You have to ונברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה.
And all of the people of the world have come from you.
Not come from you. Will be blessed.
Will be blessed by you. Sorry.
Yes, this is the main idea.
Thank you, Colonel Hezi Nehama, for joining us today and sharing with us a real vision for how and what we should be doing to achieve victory in Gaza. And thank you to all of our listeners who've stayed through to the end. Click the like button, share, subscribe, and leave us a comment letting us know how and what we'd like to hear more about. To our partners here at the Jerusalem Media Group, again, your partnership is appreciated. And our sponsors at BeThereIsrael.com for all your streaming and live video needs for any event you have here in Israel, so that you can be here even if you're not in Israel. And once again, thank you to everybody, and Am Yisrael Chai.